I used to work as a cashier at a CVS. This story takes place when I was working during a quiet night. It was late, and I think we closed in like 30 minutes or so. I was by myself, and there hadn't been a single customer in the store for probably 10 or 15 minutes. That's when I noticed a man walking in, dressed in a security guard uniform. The man was tall, looked sort of muscular, and was wearing sunglasses. He looked like a stereotype bodyguard or security guard. I didn't think too much of it until I saw the man looking around, almost seeking me out. Then he walked right over to me as I stood behind the counter near the register. As he got close, he said hi to me, and he smiled, and I said hi back to him. He then quickly asked me if I was the only one working. The man seemed like he was sort of in a hurry. He started speaking sort of fast and said that he and his partner had chased a man from down the street who had assaulted someone. He said that the person had ran into our property and the man tried to enter through our locked back door. He then proceeded to cause some damage in the parking lot before the men were able to catch him. I was told that the police were already called and on their way, and I needed to come out and look at the damage. I couldn't believe it, because it had seemed like another standard night at work, and I hadn't seen or heard anything from the parking lot. Nothing crazy like this had also ever happened in the entire time that I'd been working there. I got out from behind the counter. The man then told me to follow him, and he quickly walked out of the store. Now, I was leaving the store unattended, which I should have known better, but I figured that it was fine. When we walked out, the man immediately walked down the sidewalk right next to the store and around to the side of it. I could see only my car in the parking lot and nothing else. As we approached the end of the sidewalk, I wasn't seeing or hearing anything strange at all. In fact, it was extremely quiet out there. It was then that I got a terrible feeling. I realized just how sketchy this whole situation was. Soon, we started going around to the back of the building. It was even darker and quieter there, but when I could see back there, I saw there was another man wearing security clothes and standing there, and that was it. There was no damage and no other man back there. Without giving it much thought, I said, "I have to get something real quick, I'll be right back." I stopped and started walking back towards the store. I heard the man say, "No," sort of loudly, but he didn't try to stop me. I quickly walked back inside and didn't know what to do. I thought the man was going to walk back into the store after me, but he didn't. I considered locking the doors and was about to do so when I heard a car driving away. I didn't see it though. I decided to look outside, and when I did, I didn't really see anything. I walked outside and everything was quiet. I decided to go all around the CVS store and investigate. Everything seemed just fine. The men were gone and nowhere to be found. Obviously, the whole story that the man gave me was nonsense. I doubt he was actually a security guard of any kind at all. I felt like I had potentially dodged a bullet. I really don't know what the plan was, but I'm glad the men left. The police also never came, like the man told me he had called them. I worked the last bit of my shift, then locked up and left. The rest of my time working there, I never saw that man again, and nothing else like that ever happened. One day, about a year ago, I went to a CVS pharmacy to pick up my prescription. I was on my way home from work, and luckily had enough time before the pharmacy closed. I pulled into the drive-thru on the side of the building and gave them my information. After a minute or so, my prescription was handed to me, and I drove off. I remember that nobody else had been in line behind me, and I pulled away. As I was going around to leave, though, that's when I noticed that there was a car just sitting there, idling in the parking lot. It wasn't in my way, but it also wasn't in a parking space. As soon as I drove past it, the car started driving behind me. It was a standard four-door sedan, appeared to be a silver color, and was probably about 5 years old. Overall, a very common-looking vehicle. After leaving the parking lot and getting onto the road, the car drove behind me. The only reason that I even noticed it was because it was following me sort of close. I soon went onto a road with multiple lanes, and I drove in the right lane. I expected to be passed by this car, but I wasn't. The silver car kept driving right behind mine. It got kind of annoying because he was like right on my tail. And finally, after about 5 minutes, it was my exit from the highway. I was glad to be getting off. But when I exited, the car behind me did the same thing. Now I was actually kind of concerned. I didn't know if he was following me. It kind of seemed like it, to be honest. To test things out, I turned immediately into the parking lot of a gas station. The car behind me did the same. I then looped around and exited back onto the road while the car followed, copying everything that I did. As I continued my way home, I was now getting really worried. I was also wondering who this was and why they were following me. I tried my best to think of possible reasons. Did I know them? I had never seen this car before, so I really didn't think so. Had I done something to make them angry? I didn't think driving by them in the parking lot would. Perhaps I did something before that when I was driving to the CVS. I really couldn't remember anything though. If I had cut somebody off or done something like that, I would have remembered for sure. I had no idea why this guy was behind me. Maybe he had me confused with somebody else. I kept on driving home because I didn't really know what else to do in the moment. I was starting to get really concerned though. Soon, I approached the turnoff for my neighborhood. I lived in what I would describe as a pretty typical neighborhood. There were lots of streets with many houses on them, all right by each other. When the car was still right on my tail, I got desperate. I started turning left and right. Each new street that I came to, I would turn at. I was so tired of being followed. But amazingly, each turn that I made, the car kept up with me and would make as well. I started to pull over on the side of the road then because I didn't think I could take it anymore. I didn't really have a plan. And to tell you the truth, I don't even know really why I pulled over. The car pulled over right behind me. That's when I guess I thought better of it and I hit the gas. The car quickly sped off as well, and it was right back to following me basically. I drove around the neighborhood for what felt like forever. It was probably like 20 minutes to be honest. I would go left, right, left, whatever, just trying to lose the car. I was turning constantly and just driving around in circles in my neighborhood basically. Finally, at last, the car turned off on a street in another direction that I had gone. I couldn't believe it at first. I continued what I was doing just to be safe. When I didn't see the car for a while, I was confident that it was finally gone and I drove back to my house. I was able to get home safely and I checked out the window multiple times after I was home to make sure that the car didn't show up in my driveway or anything like that. Luckily, it didn't. To this day though, I still wonder what exactly happened. Why did the car follow me for so long? I really never got a good look to know who the driver was. I only saw a figure of somebody driving. I think it was a man, but to be honest, I'm not even sure of that. Also, I never got the license plate, so I knew it would be useless to report it. Since that incident, I went back to that same CVS to get my prescription multiple times. Nothing like that has happened, thankfully. I'm always more aware though nowadays, and if something like that were to happen again, I would drive directly to a police station. A few months ago, I went to a CVS to get some food. I was hungry and didn't really have anything at my place. I was hoping to just get like a Gatorade and something else. It was probably about 11 o'clock at night, maybe even later. There was a CVS right down the street from my apartment though. I live in a city, so there's a lot of late night places nearby. I've walked to this particular CVS more times than I can count. They're open 24 hours and it's really close. That's why it's my go-to spot many late nights. Anyways, I completed the maybe 5-minute walk and went inside. The store was very quiet. Usually, there would be at least a few other people shopping, but tonight, there were none at all. I made my way to the snacks aisle and I found something. Then I went to get a cold drink. That aisle happened to be at the very far side of the store, up against the wall. When I was looking at the drinks for no longer than about a minute, I heard somebody walking towards me from the back part of the store. Whoever it was walked right up to me and then stopped. I looked over to see a man standing there. He had dark hair that was sort of messy. The man asked me how I was doing. At least that's what I thought he was saying. It was kind of hard to understand. Something about him seemed a little bit off. He then asked me if I was going to buy him the drink that I had in my hands. I laughed a little and said no, thinking the guy was joking. He was kind of creeping me out though, and I really didn't think that he was joking. He then asked me if I could give him some money. I told the man no. Immediately, he cursed at me and then walked away. When he got out of sight and was in another aisle, I heard the man yell something rather loudly. I really couldn't tell what though. This made me want to just leave the store. I took my items and went to the front. There was an employee working, but the store had self-checkouts, and I used one of those. Afterwards, I left the store and began my 5-minute walk back home. Leaving the store, everything was fine, but roughly halfway home, sure enough, the man emerged again. It was kind of lucky that I even noticed him though. I I was walking and did hear somebody walking down the sidewalk behind me, but in the city, there's always people walking, so I really thought nothing of it. I casually turned around to look, and that's when I saw the guy. He was already looking at me and walking about 50 feet back. There was a ways between us, but I still had a bad feeling. We were far away from the CVS that I felt like there was a good chance he was after me. There were also not very many other people around at this hour at all. I kept walking, but picked up my pace. However, that's when I noticed the sound of footsteps behind me getting closer. I turned around and saw that the man was in a sort of half walk, half jog. He was gaining on me fast. I wasn't really sure what to do, but as I continued on, I noticed a bar that was still open coming up on the side. When I got there, I went inside the bar. The man was only about 20 feet behind me at that point. After going in the bar, I went towards the back side of it. There was a decent amount of other people inside. It wasn't packed or anything, but I now felt much safer. The man did not come inside the bar. He waited outside, and I thought maybe he had gone past and walked away, so I started to leave. But that's when I saw the same guy there through the window. He was just kind of standing around outside. It seemed like he was waiting for me. With my CVS bag in hand, I walked over to the bar and took an open seat. I proceeded to have a drink and take my time. I watched the TV and glanced over every so often at the window. The man remained outside for a good 20 minutes. At last, I didn't see him anymore. Then I was finally able to leave. I carefully walked the rest of the way back to my apartment. I was back a lot later than I had originally planned, but at least I was safe. The man did not show up at all, and I'm glad I haven't seen him since. I still wonder, though, what would have happened to me if he had caught up with me. It's something that freaks me out to think of.